Hundreds gathering in the Capitol Wednesday for Independence Day celebrations will face dangerous heat.
Yeah, on Tuesday, the heat index in some cities hit 109 degrees. Chris Van Cleve is on the National Mall with more.
The nation's capital remains under a heat emergency. It's going to feel close to 100 degrees out here with the heat index as hundreds of thousands of people come out to the mall to watch the annual 4th of July fireworks and the show that surrounds that. Now, D.C. Fire says they're already seeing 10 to 15 cases a day of heat exhaustion during this heat wave, so there's concern about what today will bring. The city has already added additional cooling centers, cooling tents here on the mall and throughout town. That's in addition to the more than half dozen first aid tents that are here. Dozens of first responders will be on hand to assist anyone feeling the effects of the high heat and humidity. Crews were out working in yesterday's excessive heat. It felt like it was almost 109 degrees, working to get ready for the fireworks. That includes setting up the 6,500 or so fireworks shells that will be launched tonight. Those fireworks are set for around 9 o'clock. At that point, the temperature should be in the 80s, but it's going to feel a lot hotter. Today, there are 3 4th of July parades scheduled around town. D.C. Fire says they're sending engines to those parades to essentially act as giant misters to help people stay cool. Omar and Paula.
Thank you, Chris Van Cleve. CBS News weather producer David Parkinson joins me now. Okay, David, we get it. It's summer and it's hot, but is there any particular reason why it feels hotter?
So we have a large area. I think that's what's different is usually, some parts of the country will be hot. You're used to Texas being hot. Yep. You are based down there, right? But it's not typical that you have heat from, let's say, Phoenix all the way to Bangor, Maine. Like that's a large expanse. And what's causing that is what's called informally a heat dome, right? Which is you've got a giant area of high pressure that's underneath the jet stream, and it expands. There's no dip in the jet stream. Usually there's some sort of a dip. It expands pretty much across the entire country, which is rare. It's in the top 3 strongest ridges we've ever had in the country, at least in terms of recorded history. And so when we talk about that, that's why we have such a broad expanse of it. As we go towards the weekend, we get a little bit of a dip here in New York. So the Northeast cools down a little bit. But if you are in the West Coast, you are just about to get the torch. So, it's a trade-off there.
All right, I just saw that map. The entire thing is red, but it looks like there is some deeper red. So specifically, where is this heat wave? Or I guess the better question is there anywhere there isn't a heat wave right now in the United States of America?
That's an excellent question. So part of the heat wave thing is it depends what you call a heat wave. So in some spots, it's 3 days of 90, 3 days of 95. There are different criteria. But in terms of where the hot weather is not, it's basically right along the coast of California. If you take a look at where we might get some relief, we've got some storms in the Houston area, and we've got some storms up by Omaha, Nebraska, pushing through Minneapolis and into Wisconsin. Those storms pushing through will make it to here by Friday, so we're not going to have a great day on Friday. But on the backside of it, we'll actually have temperatures that are in the low to mid 80s here in the Northeast, and that will stick around for a couple days before things get a little bit warmer again.
You talked a little bit about relief right there. Is there a weather pattern that's going to change to bring kind of some widespread relief, or are we just basically ready to sit in an oven for a while?
Yeah, so you should get prepared mentally for a long, hot July, if you will. So there will be some days that will be worse than others. So we're going to go back down to the 80s. We're still probably going to be a bit above average, actually. As the West Coast warms, the East Coast will cool down a little bit, and then we switch right back to the same thing. So the temperatures in the West Coast, in terms of what you're looking at, you've got temperatures right along the coast, pretty reasonable, 70s and 80s, even San Francisco in the 60s. As you get to Friday and Saturday, LA goes up to 103, 104 degrees. You get Death Valley going to 125. Vegas is in the 1-teens. So that's where things are going to ramp up. And you guys need to prepare. You've been a little bit cooler comparative to everybody else.
All right, let's talk about those preparations, though. A little public service announcement time. In your expert opinion, what should people do to prepare for this kind of heat?
Well, so the first thing that you need to do is make sure that you're watching how much time you're spending in the sun. So if at all you can, don't spend time in the sun exerting yourself during these daylight hours. If you're going out to a festival, a parade, there are some things going on for the 4th of July. Make sure you're being perfectly hydrated and make sure you're taking care of your children and pets. And the reason why you need to be particularly careful about that is when it's 95 degrees, the cement is 120. The grass in the sun is even in the low 100s to 110s. But then when we talk about warmer places, the blacktop is 140. A car in 30 minutes warms up 30 to 35 degrees. In an hour, it's over 140 degrees. Those are obviously things that can kill a person very quickly. So you need to be careful about that. You need to be careful about staying hydrated, and also, protect yourself from the sun. Make sure that you're not setting off fireworks in the West. It's incredibly dry. It's incredibly hot, and they've got some real fire concerns out there.
And you mentioned how hot things get. I mean, we see paw print, dogs in their paws get burnt when it's 140 degrees on a blacktop and they're walking.
Right. If it can fry an egg, it can fry your dog's paws or your kid's feet. If you're walking in the sand is 120 degrees in some spots. Wear the flip-flops out at the beach. Even though it's so much cooler because you've got wind cooling off the ocean, it doesn't matter. The sun is strong enough to warm that sand up.
Or stay inside.
Like we will. And we'll drink lots of water. We have water here.
The plus side of working on the holiday.
We're prepared. We are so prepared. Well, thank you so much, Dave. Really appreciate it, especially those reminders about creatures, small fur babies and real babies who can't say, ow, it's hot.
Yeah.
Got to protect their feet.